As He Xiao and I exchanged wedding rings, the door to the hall suddenly swung open. Dad! He Xiao froze, the wedding ring stuck between the knuckle and the finger of her ring finger, neither up nor down, utterly embarrassing. A elegantly dressed woman, holding a 4 or 5-year-old child, stood at the doorway. Upon seeing the scene in the hall, the woman's eyes instantly welled up with tears. She looked pitiful and helpless. Just one tear was enough to make He Xiao completely forget that this was my wedding with him. The woman hugged the child and quickly turned to leave. Sophie. He left me behind and ran after the woman and the child. The wedding ring spun on the ground and rolled to the feet of the officiant. The usually quick-witted officiant didn't know what to say. Whispers filled the air, and countless pitying and mocking glances fell on me. I had become a complete joke. My first wedding had ended like this. Mr. Hayes's face turned ashen, and he ordered the bodyguards to bring He Xiao back. Mrs. Hayes said she would give me an explanation, but her usually kind and gentle face now looked grim. From He Xiao's best friend, I learned the basics of the situation. She was one of He Xiao's many ex-girlfriends, stunningly beautiful, a rare gem. They had broken up and gotten back together multiple times. But 6 years ago, their relationship had ended for good. What no one could have anticipated was that she was pregnant with his child. Sis-in-law, Ethan was just playing around with that woman. How could she compare to those words? I doubt he even believed himself. I'm going to the restroom. Mrs. Hayes feared I might do something reckless and offered to accompany me. It's okay, Mom. I'll wait for He Xiao to return. I changed out of my wedding dress and headed toward the restroom. But was intercepted by Derek, who dragged me into an empty stall. I struggled fiercely, but he held on to my waist, his tone filled with schadenfreude. I took a video. Want to see it? He came here to mock me. Seeing this vain woman he once admired end up like this, how could he not be happy? I kicked him and coldly said, "Stay away from me." He ignored me and opened his phone. On the screen, the man who should have been toasting the guests with me was now holding a child in one arm and holding a woman's hand with the other, walking around freely in Chicago's most upscale mall. What a sweet family of 3. Derek looked at me, confident in his victory. Lila, do you regret it now? All this time, he had been determined to make my life miserable. No. He was certain I was just being stubborn, and he sneered, "Why don't you consider me? Even though I can't marry you, I won't let you suffer like this." Standing on stage today, being pointed at by everyone, didn't make me feel that humiliating. But his words were like a knife, sharp and precise, stabbing deep into my heart. Derek, I have no interest in playing this game of rekindling old feelings. He played with my hair, his handsome face filled with mockery. Should I tell him about our relationship? I laughed out loud. What relationship? We dated in high school, it was just kids playing house. Derek was my ex-boyfriend. The irony was that I only found out after I started discussing marriage with He Xiao that he was He Xiao's best friend. Besides, do you think he'd care? He Xiao didn't really like me, it was just that Mr. Hayes and Mrs. Hayes thought we were a good match, so he proposed to me. I pushed Derek away and turned to leave. If I tell him that his in-laws are fake, would he care? My footsteps halted, and I turned to look at him. The glow from his phone screen illuminated his eyebrows and eyes, cold and eerie. I was stung by the hatred and mockery in his eyes. He knew nothing. He didn't know that the reason I married He Xiao was to seek justice for my father in my own way. My father found me in a garbage dump. He was a sanitation worker who had injured his leg while working on a construction site years ago, leaving him with a limp. No contractor would hire him anymore. He drifted aimlessly through the city until he found me, barely clinging to life, beside a trash bin. He learned to be a father, building a home for me amidst the ruins. He carried me on his back while sweeping the streets. When there was no money for formula, he cooked rice porridge for me. He also said I was a gift from heaven. Finally, like all children, I grew up. The night before elementary school started, he took me to the mall. Bought me clothes, a backpack, and stationery. He counted each bill, his dark face glowing with a smile. He said, "If others have it, you must have it too. You have to dress nicely so others won't look down on you." At the time, I didn't understand what he meant. But soon, I found out. On Teacher's Day, I was the only one who didn't buy a gift for the teacher. I was the only one who picked a few beautiful wildflowers from the side of the road. But before I could give them to the teacher, Buddy snatched the flowers from my hands, sniffed them, then threw them at my feet, crushing them into a mess. Such cheap things, how could you even think of bringing these? Your family is so poor, you should just go beg on the street. How could he say such things? He belittled my father's hard work and efforts, reducing them to nothing. Shut up. He didn't listen to me but instead gloated, you and your dad should go where beggars belong. I covered Buddy's mouth, trying to stop him from speaking. But he kicked me in the stomach. That was the first time I had ever been hit. The pain made tears stream down my face. Mr. Wilson. Xiao Fang is hitting me. I wanted to say it wasn't true, that he had hit me first. But Buddy didn't give me a chance to speak. He knocked me to the ground, sat on top of me, and started beating me. The teacher finally arrived, separated us, and called our parents. My father was pointed at and called a trash man. He didn't argue back, just nodded and smiled at the man. In that moment, I realized that people are different. In their eyes, being poor was a sin. The teacher told us to shake hands and make up. I didn't want my dad to smile like that, it looked so ugly. So I reached out my hand to Buddy first. But Buddy's dad said, "What handshake? She's just like this trash, covered in bacteria. Disgusting." My dad suddenly got angry, grabbed his arm, and forced him to apologize to me. Buddy's father pushed him away, his face full of contempt. Apologize? People like you are the scum of society. Parasites. I pay thousands of dollars in taxes every month, and it's all used to support you. You're only alive because of me. And you want me to apologize? His spit splattered all over my face. My father was breathing heavily, trembling with anger. I held his tightly clenched fist. Dad, I'm hungry. Can we go home? He paused, lowering his head to look at me. I smiled up at him. He released his fist, his eyes welling up with tears. All right. On the way home, Dad didn't scold me. He only told me, Sonny, we must study hard so that we can become people who are respected by others. I wanted him to be respected too. I wanted him to sit upright in a clean restaurant. I wanted him to be healthy and live a long life. But none of that came true. He died. At the time, I was in 4th grade and had gotten first place in my class. My father asked me, "What reward do you want?" I looked up at him and said, "I want cola chicken wings." My father ruffled my hair and smiled, saying okay. A desperate cry suddenly rang out, "Help! Help! Someone save me! Sonny, stay here and don't move. Dad will be right back." After saying that, he stumbled and limped toward the riverbank, then jumped in without hesitation. His hands flailed wildly in the darkness for a moment, then went still. The cries for help soon turned into laughter. The child emerged from the water, but my father was nowhere to be seen. I almost forgot that my father, who seemed invincible in my eyes, couldn't swim. I ran to the riverbank. "Dad. Come up." No one fell into the river. "He's lying to you." No one answered me. Only the river continued to flow. I finally found someone to help. The culprit was standing on the bank, calmly packing his things. I went crazy and rushed toward him. "You can't leave. Why did you do this?" "What did he say?" "He said, I was just playing around. I didn't ask him to save me. But it was him who was shouting for help to my father. He kicked me away. He was a big kid, I couldn't beat him. He looked down at me with no trace of kindness in his eyes. A crippled kid trying to act tough. Dad, look at him. Is this the kind of person you wanted to save? Give me back my dad." As he was about to leave, I bit his calf. He winced in pain and kicked my head repeatedly with his other foot. It hurt so much. But I couldn't let him go. My father was killed by him. Soon, 2 headlights appeared in the distance. I shouted for help, hoping they would come to my rescue. I felt like I couldn't hold on much longer. But I was wrong. They dragged me away and threw me by the riverbank like a piece of trash. "Young master, please go home first. We'll handle the rest." The boy gave me a cold look and left with the words, "You're just a worthless insect." He went home, but what about me? What about my home? The uncle who had come to help me got out of the water, looked at me with pity, and shook his head. "I didn't see anyone. The police finally arrived and retrieved my father's body. I told him to get up. I said I was hungry and wanted to eat KFC chicken wings. He didn't respond. At that moment, my world collapsed. I told everyone that my father didn't jump on his own. Someone played a prank on him. Someone deceived him. This wasn't suicide. It wasn't an accident. But no one believed me. No one fought for justice for him. My father, such a good father, was soon forgotten by everyone. After my father died, I was sent to an orphanage. Every night, my dreams were filled with my father's lifeless face and the laughter of that child. No one was there to pat my back with their rough, weathered hands or sing me to sleep with a gentle voice. No one would pull out a toy from their pocket like a treasure, touch my head, and say, "Our little Sonny, you've been through so much." No one would use their bent back to support me and build a home for me. I woke up crying and fell asleep crying. I desperately wanted the murderer to taste this pain. Every day, I planned how to do it. Since he must be wealthy or powerful, I decided to stake out every prestigious high school in Chicago. Finally, I found him. I learned his name was He Xiao, and his father ran a pharmaceutical company, living a life of affluence. He still enjoyed pranks, cornering people in alleys and settling disputes with his fists. Later, he injured a boy and left the country. He temporarily vanished from my sight. I always remembered my father's words, study hard and read diligently. At the same time, I kept a close eye on the Hayes family's activities. During my high school years, the drug their company developed caused patient deaths, with 30 victims. The incident caused a huge uproar, but they didn't face any consequences. In court, expert reports stated that the drug contained no components that could have caused the patient's deaths. I knew the truth was far from that. He Xiao and his father were cut from the same cloth, disregarding human life and resorting to any means necessary. But at that time, there was nothing I could do. I could only study relentlessly, day and night. Finally, I gained admission to the top university in the country, Stanford, and chose a major in pharmaceuticals. I staked my entire life on this, infiltrating their ranks, determined to make them pay for their actions. At Stanford, I met Derek. He was a faint glimmer of light in my dark life. After his relentless pursuit, we ended up together. But the gap between us was too vast. The burdens I carried in my life were too heavy, and he wasn't one of them. During my university years, I came to understand many things. The Hayes family's pharmaceutical company was doing quite well. To become a core researcher there, I would need at least 10 years, perhaps even 20 or 30 years. I couldn't wait that long. I had to rethink my plans. The ruthless Mr. Hayes had once been a romantic man. He and his first love, Aunt Clara, had loved each other passionately, to the point of life and death. But Mr. Hayes chose a business marriage for the sake of his career. Aunt Clara, heartbroken, left the place where she had been hurt and settled in Australia. She was the light of his life. After enduring countless hardships, she now leads a life of wealth but is alone, having lost her daughter and husband. She is now lonely and frail, spending most of her time in the hospital, desperately in need of someone to care for her. I broke up with Derek and went to Australia without hesitation. I approached Aunt Clara and cared for her with unwavering devotion. I concealed my father's existence and deliberately played the role of the unfortunate one in front of her. I was raised by strangers and have no memories of my parents. But I remember my mother's embrace. "You smell like her." I leaned into her arms, tears falling at the right moment. She too wept uncontrollably. It took me 2 years to convince her to publicly declare that I was her long-lost daughter. I now had the perfect identity to approach He Xiao. At that time, He Xiao had already spent years abroad building his career and had taken over the family business. I applied for a position and became his secretary. The little girl I was back then was so plain, and He Xiao could never have imagined that the beautiful and alluring secretary standing before him was the same girl who had once cried and demanded he return her father, the same insignificant insect he had once mocked. At the company's annual party, I wore the necklace Aunt Clara had given me. By accident, I bumped into Mr. Hayes. I panicked and stepped back repeatedly. "I'm so sorry, Mr. Chairman, He was graceful, steadying me, and when his gaze fell on my neck, his movements paused. His voice trembled involuntarily. "This necklace. Oh, this is a gift from my mother." I smiled brightly, My mother said it was a gift from the person she loved most. She hoped this necklace would bring me luck and help me find true love. This necklace was the one Mr. Hayes had given to Aunt Clara. He heard my words and remained silent. It might sound a bit silly, but my mom was a romantic at heart and always had these odd expectations. But I did end up meeting someone I really like. He studied me closely, as if searching for Aunt Clara's features on my face. Your mom, was her name Clara? I feigned surprise. Oh, Mr. Chairman, you knew her? Mr. Hayes didn't mention that they had been lovers, only telling me they had been high school classmates and attended the same university. Is your mother, okay? I looked sad. She passed away. He couldn't believe it, his lips parted slightly, then his eyes welled up with tears. After the company gathering, Mr. Hayes began looking out for me in every way. Until one day, he asked me, why did you choose to come here? Aunt Clara had married well, and her life after marriage was comfortable. Her daughter naturally didn't need to work as a secretary for someone else. I blushed instantly. Mr. Hayes understood. From the clues I had given him, he knew that I had set my sights on his son. Yes, that was the plan I had laid out. He Xiao was a womanizer, always surrounded by women, and I wasn't confident I could keep him. Better to start with Mr. Hayes. He made up for his debt to Aunt Clara by showering me with kindness. With his support, I not only climbed to the management level of the company but also married He Xiao smoothly and naturally. Derek, don't say such foolish things. Aunt Clara and her husband are both dead. No one will know the truth about my identity. Besides, the identity of her daughter was something Aunt Clara gave me voluntarily. I have a friend who happens to be Aunt Clara's attending physician. From him, I heard an interesting story. A friend? Although the Derek family runs a large hospital and has extensive connections, I don't believe his friend would, just happen, to be Aunt Clara's attending physician. Derek investigated me. But he's just an attending physician, what could he possibly know? The Hayes family didn't even bother to look into it, so why are you wasting your time? I curled my lips into a frivolous smile. Derek, you haven't forgotten me, have you? You're really a hopeless romantic. He hadn't forgotten me. Probably because 6 years ago, I suddenly broke up with him and disappeared without a trace. That must have hurt his pride and self-respect. After all, he was a prodigy who could get anything he wanted, and no one had ever treated him like I did. Derek's jaw tightened. I thought he would deny it, but I didn't expect him to react like this. I pressed my lips together and said coldly, the matter between me and the Hayes family doesn't need your interference. Me and He Xiao aren't going to divorce that easily. AB blood type and O blood type can't produce an O blood type child. He was actually that meticulous. He clearly didn't believe I was Aunt Clara's daughter. But since both her husband and she were deceased, he couldn't use DNA testing to prove our relationship, so he went digging into our blood types instead. Derek pressed me against the wall, his teeth clenched in anger. Lila, you're so determined to marry him that you're willing to invent another version of yourself just to do it? I wasn't ready to tell him the truth yet. After all, I had to deal with his brother, who was also his business partner. He might not help me, so there was no point in taking that risk. I shrugged, feigning nonchalance. Yeah, who wouldn't want to marry into a wealthy family? He hesitated. What a pity. Back when we were dating, you insisted on pretending to be poor. Otherwise, I might have married you instead. I deliberately leaned on his shoulder, but he turned away. Don't use those words to disgust me. I snorted and let go of him. Derek, don't do something stupid. Divorcing me won't do you any good. Even if the truth comes out, I'll just go from being his biological daughter to his adopted daughter. The worst-case scenario is that Mr. Hayes might harbor some resentment toward me, but time heals all wounds, and I'll eventually win him back. Don't let him leave you just to save face. Don't make me hate you. Don't call me Lila. Lila is gone. I have 3 names. My father named me Yang Yang, saying I was his little son. After he died, I feared the Hayes family would come after me, so I changed my name to Lila. After getting involved with Aunt Clara, I took her husband's surname and became Wu Yingying. Next time you see me, call me sis-in-law like everyone else. By midnight, He Xiao finally returned. Mr. Hayes was furious, suddenly stood up, and slapped him. Look at what you've done. The incident had already spread online. Someone had filmed the wedding video and posted it online. The scandal of the wealthy family became a hot topic among netizens. Dad! I exclaimed, then rushed to Xiao's side. Ethan, are you okay? Does it hurt? He frowned, didn't look at me, and said to Mr. Hayes, this is my own business. I'll handle it myself. Is this your own business? What do you think of Yingying? Do you know how harsh people are online? I defended him. Dad, Ethan didn't want this either. No one knew there would suddenly be a child. Yingying is a proper young lady. She came all the way from Australia to be your secretary, to serve you tea and water. And you? I interrupted Mr. Hayes. Dad, we agreed not to bring this up, didn't we? To avoid putting any psychological burden on Xiao, I had made an agreement with Mr. Hayes never to mention that I was the reason he had returned to the country. I only told him that I was the daughter of Mr. Hayes's old friend and had come here to improve my skills. This selfless and devoted image made Mr. Hayes like me even more. Mr. Hayes felt sorry for me. You silly child, you should have told me what you did. I remained silent, tears streaming down my face. Dad, Ethan, and I will figure this out. It's late, you and Mom should go rest. My grandson must be born to Yingying. You'll have to handle this yourself. With that, Mr. Hayes stormed upstairs. He and I went to our own rooms. As soon as we entered, he tugged at his collar, looking visibly agitated. What did Dad mean by that? The story I had made up was finally going to come in handy. I told him that I had been orphaned at a young age and had relied on my own efforts to get into Stanford. During the university's centennial celebration, he had appeared in a sharp black suit, looking elegant and refined. Then, he had donated a building to support countless underprivileged students. The hardships of life had made my experiences and thoughts far surpass those of my peers. That's why I fell head over heels for him, mature, steady, and full of love. I've been working hard to catch up to you, hoping one day I can stand by your side. Later, my mother found me, and I learned I wasn't an orphan. She wanted me to settle in Australia, and I agreed. But I always remembered you. My mother noticed my feelings and, before she passed away, encouraged me to bravely pursue my love. What he didn't know was that the gaze I cast upon him was never one of admiration. He also didn't know that what Aunt Clara told me wasn't to pursue love, but to let go of hatred and live a good life. It turned out she had seen the heaviness behind my smile. I said, I'm sorry. From the day my father died, my greatest obsession was to seek justice for him. So I couldn't agree to her. She didn't insist, just smiled peacefully. She said she would watch over me from heaven, hoping I would be well, and then she fell into an eternal sleep. Once I've settled things in Australia, I'll return to the country. Becoming your secretary is also so I can be closer to you. Xiao didn't love me much, but I was still a beautiful woman. At this moment, this beautiful woman was pouring out her love for him without reservation, which greatly satisfied his vanity. He looked a bit moved. I didn't know any of these things. I smiled slightly. You don't need to know the details. You just need to know that I love you. Such deep affection made me want to vomit. But it's just acting, so no need to be ashamed. He remained silent for a long time before saying, I'm sorry. I didn't expect this to happen today. Xiao, you do deserve to be sorry, but not because of what happened. It's because you abandoned me in front of everyone, making me a laughingstock. But it doesn't matter. I'll make you pay for it. His tone softened, and I pressed on. What are your plans for the child? If you truly care about the child, you can take him home. After all, he is your child, the bloodline of the Hayes family. If you trust me, let me raise him. If you don't, let your mother take him. Your mother has always wanted a grandchild. She won't let him be deprived of anything. As for Dad, he was just angry today and said those things. I'll find a way to convince him to accept this child. This gracious and considerate display left Xiao very satisfied. He truly believed that I loved him so much that I was willing to endure humiliation and love him despite his flaws. In a few days, I'll bring the child over to meet your parents. My expression grew somber. He quickly understood and said, as for Sophia, I'll take care of her. You're Mrs. He, no one can shake your position. You must love her, right? Xiao's brows suddenly furrowed tightly. There's nothing like that. After saying that, he made an excuse to go take a shower and entered the bathroom. Did he really never love her? Then why did he panic at the wedding? Why did he go to such lengths to chase after her? He was still being stubborn. Even the ruthless He Xiao could fall into the trap of love. The sound of water trickled from the bathroom. I poured a glass of red wine and stood by the window, looking down at the scenery below. My phone rang. It was an unfamiliar number. It wasn't me. It was Derek. I froze for a moment before realizing what he was referring to. I understand. Is there anything else? If not, I'll hang up. Of course, I knew it wasn't his doing. That video was something I had someone film and upload online. The phone went dead, and he hung up first. He Xiao acted quickly. Within a few days, he really did bring the child back to the Hayes family. Sophia named him Zhang Xian. She raised him well. He had a round, chubby face and was quite adorable. At the dinner table, Mr. Hayes looked stern. Are you sure he's your child? He Xiao replied, we did a paternity test, it's confirmed. Then what do you plan to do? Bring him back to the Hayes family and let us raise him? Sophia doesn't agree. The experts also said it's better for the child to stay with his mother, it's better for his development. Mr. Hayes snorted, I think this woman is just using the child as an excuse to make you go to her side. Mrs. Hayes interrupted him, the child is still here, don't say such things. I placed the boneless fish meat into the child's bowl and said, Dad, Mom, since Sophia doesn't agree, let's just drop it. Besides, Sammy is still young and has grown up with his mother. Suddenly having him live with us might leave him with psychological trauma. Let's wait until he's older, give Ethan and the child more time to bond, and then bring him back. That's a good idea. Mr. Hayes relented, and He Xiao started visiting Sophia more frequently. They often appeared as a family of 3 at the kindergarten, playground, and restaurants. I pretended not to notice, but I was actually pleased with the arrangement. I should also thank Sophia. Her presence spared me from dealing with He Xiao, allowing me to focus more on my work. Soon, the Hayes family was taken away by tax authorities for investigation. The anonymous tip I had been collecting for a long time came in handy. As Mrs. Hayes, I had more authority and could act more freely. This was just the first round, the Real show was about to begin. Many pieces of information unfavorable to the He family were leaked. The Hayes family was skilled at putting on a show, so to make everyone think everything was fine, Mrs. Hayes specially invited me to attend a charity gala. That evening, I brought Zhang Xian along. Yingying, why did you bring him here? Mrs. Hayes was displeased with my actions. Though she liked children, bringing an illegitimate child to such a formal occasion was clearly inappropriate. I gave a forced smile. Mom, this was He Xiao's idea. He's always wanted to introduce Sammy to everyone. Sophia's influence was indeed powerful. In just a few months, she had made He Xiao obey her every command. Mrs. Hayes sighed, Yingying, you need to step up your efforts. These days, Mrs. Hayes had been busy searching everywhere for tonics for me, but my stomach remained unchanged. I certainly wouldn't bear a child for He Xiao, the thought made me feel sick. I looked down at Zhang Xian, touched his little face, and said, Sammy, be a good boy. Auntie will take you to meet people. Mrs. Hayes was reluctant, but since things had come to this, she could only pretend to be deeply affectionate toward her grandson and introduce Zhang Xian to her business partners. Some envious glances fell on me, but they praised Mrs. Hayes with flattery. Mrs. He really is so fortunate. I maintained a dignified and proper smile. Not only that, but at my suggestion, Mrs. Hayes also donated some supplies in Zhang Xian's name. This way, the fact that Zhang Xian was a member of the Hayes family was common knowledge. While carrying Zhang Xian to the restroom, I encountered Derek again. In fact, as early as the banquet, I had felt his gaze lingering on me. This time, he acted more boldly, directly blocking me at the end of the corridor. Thick curtains surrounded us. It didn't look like we were up to anything good. I was wearing a backless dress, and the sudden contact with the glass sent a chill down my spine. Derek extended his arm, blocking the space between my back and the glass. In that confined space, our breath mingled. He looked down at me, his eyes filled with shattered starlight. He remained silent, and his strange demeanor left me baffled. I coldly asked, What are you doing? How long do you plan to keep lying to me? I didn't know where I had gone wrong. I'm not lying to you. He leaned close to my ear and whispered in a very low voice, You were the one who reported me. How did he know? Had he been watching me all along? I always act cautiously, otherwise, I wouldn't have spent 4 years gathering evidence of the Hayes family's tax evasion. He continued to ask me, "What exactly are you trying to do? Tell me, Lila." His expression was unexpectedly calm, but his left hand, which was gripping my wrist, trembled uncontrollably. "Derek, is staring at me the only thing you have to do?" "Yes." He admitted it, his expression calm, as if it weren't a big deal. But a surge of anger rose up inside me, filling my chest. He had been the best medical student at Stanford, praised by countless professors. He was destined to follow in his father's footsteps and become a top expert in his field. That was his dream, and he should have pursued it. But now he wanted to pry into my plans and meddle in my life. "What's going on?" This was much sooner than I had planned to tell him. He Xiao had been taken away for investigation, but hadn't suffered any major setbacks yet. The Derek family's stance wouldn't change. So I couldn't gauge what Derek would do. But still, since he was so certain I was targeting the Hayes family, why hadn't he warned them? So they should remain neutral for now. "You're so good at investigating. Go find out yourself, Derek." Even if he tells the Hayes family, what can they do? A series of chain reactions will follow, and they won't be able to stop them. "Sammy is calling me. I have to go. The evidence I submitted is sufficient. They can't get away with tax evasion. With penalties included, the Hayes family will have to pay billions. The media would report it extensively, and the stock price would plummet further." After this ordeal, Mr. Hayes and He Xiao both looked haggard. "Dad, have you found out who did this?" Mr. Hayes shouted angrily, "No one in the company is involved. Did someone see the accounts while you were out partying? I think that Sophia is highly suspicious." He Xiao rubbed his temples. "It couldn't be her. I think you've been bewitched by her. You went straight to her as soon as you came out. What else can you accomplish?" Mr. Hayes raised his arm, ready to slap him. I seized the opportunity and stepped in front of He Xiao. "Dad, it's already happened. Punishing Ethan won't change anything." Mr. Hayes looked at me and eventually lowered his arm. Over the past few days, because I was so worried about them and had to take on most of their work, I had lost a lot of weight. After Mr. Hayes left, I reminded He Xiao, "We're still short 3 million. If we can't pay that, you'll go to jail." I didn't finish my sentence, but He Xiao knew the consequences. He was a man with big ambitions, unwilling to settle for just managing the family business. So he had invested in various ventures, leaving little money available to him. Now, due to the tax arrears, he had spent all the money from Mr. Hayes and his own savings. But there was still 30 million missing. What could he do? The proud Hayes family heir had no choice but to scramble for money. Mr. Hayes was furious but could only help clean up his son's mess. At his age, he had to lower himself to beg others for help. However, the Hayes family's situation was dire. Those who had made a name for themselves in the financial world were all shrewd individuals, and none of them had given any assurances. They were all waiting to see how the Hayes family would turn things around against the odds. In their moment of desperation, I approached Derek's older brother, Dean. Derek is highly skilled in medicine and will continue his family's legacy, becoming the hospital director and managing the family hospital. But Dean is different. He has made a name for himself in the financial world. When I arrived, he didn't seem surprised. He had his secretary pour me a cup of coffee, smiling politely, with no flaws in his manners. But his next words were like a dismissal. "Ethan has already been here." This guy was a wolf in sheep's clothing, always putting his interests first. I took a sip of coffee and said slowly, "My purpose is different from his. He came to borrow money, but I'm here to offer you advice." He raised his eyebrows, feigning interest. But his posture was relaxed, clearly not intending to listen seriously. He probably thought I was talking big. I recall that the Derek family's hospital has some shares owned by the Hayes family. The two families have a good relationship, so they have stakes in each other's businesses. The Hayes family's pharmaceutical company also has some shares in the Derek family's hospital. The Hayes family is short on cash right now, so this would be a good opportunity to buy their shares at a low price. This would completely remove the Hayes family from the Derek family's hospital. "I'm confident you can make this happen." Dean smiled without responding. "I need to up the ante. You don't need to worry about the relationship between the two families. After all, a good relationship can't put food on the table." I took out the prepared share transfer agreement. There are 2 reasons why I must marry Xiao. First, after becoming family, my authority will indeed be greater than before. Second, Mr. Hayes used shares in the pharmaceutical company as my dowry. Of course, my dowry isn't anything to sneeze at either. Most of what Aunt Clara left me has already gone into the Hayes family's pockets. I'm sure you have a way to convince the other shareholders to support you. With my shares added, the Hayes family's pharmaceutical company can change its name. I wasn't worried he'd refuse me. Back then, when the Hayes family's medication had issues, they used some underhanded methods to shift all the blame onto the doctors to minimize their losses. Among those doctors were many from the Derrick family's hospital. Although the compensation amounts weren't significant, and the Hayes family later compensated the Derrick family to some extent, there are things money can't buy. For instance, reputation. Since then, the Derrick family's hospital has lost much of its former prestige. Their relationship with the Hayes family naturally grew distant. Dean's smile finally showed a hint of sincerity. It seemed he was satisfied with my plan. Without much effort, I could expel the Hayes family from the Derrick family's hospital and acquire their pharmaceutical company. It was a profitable deal. Agung was right. It seems you really have a grudge against the Hayes family. I furrowed my brows. Your speech was impressive, but as for what to do next, we'll have to see what Agung says. Before I could react, a crack suddenly appeared on one of the office walls. Behind the wall was a restroom. And Derrick was standing there, silently watching me. He had heard every word of our conversation. Dean shrugged. Dad gave him a portion of the shares. If Agung doesn't agree, your plan isn't feasible. Convincing Derrick was supposed to be his job, but now it fell on me. Dean really knows how to avoid work. The office was now empty except for the 2 of us. I took a leisurely sip of coffee and walked over to him. Did you find out anything? Unlike my casual tone, Derrick remained motionless, like a heavy statue. He lowered his eyes, his jaw clenched tightly, and his Adam's apple moved slowly, his voice muffled and obscure. He asked me, "Why didn't you tell me? I would have helped you." He must have found out something. Derrick, I don't trust anyone. When it comes to absolute interests, everyone chooses their own. When we broke up, it was because I didn't want to drag him into the vortex of revenge. After reuniting, I had no grounds to ask him for help, and I never thought he would risk his friendly relationship with the Hayes family for this fleeting love. He seemed hurt by the coldness in my eyes, suddenly grabbing my hand and trying to pull me into his embrace. I couldn't dodge in time, stumbling and knocking him back several steps. Then, we both fell onto the bed. He did it on purpose, but I didn't call him out on it. The familiar scent of disinfectant lingered around my nose, stinging it and making my eyes water. I listened to his heartbeat, which gradually merged with mine. We didn't move, as if we were in perfect harmony, enjoying this rare moment of peace and quiet. I'm sorry for coming back to you so late. Those few words made me tear up. After my father left, I was mostly alone. I carried the weight of my past and unfulfilled responsibilities on my shoulders. No one to vent to, almost no one to fight alongside me. He cradled my face and kissed my forehead gently. Go ahead and do what you need to do. I'm here for you. Okay. Lanlin, you used to be called Mia, right? I laughed, but moments later, I felt a pang of sadness. The crimes he shall committed against us left no trace in this world. Few remember my overly kind father. No, I'm Yang. My father was killed by He Shao in a prank. Unlike others, my father didn't die from poisonous drugs. I told Derrick about my dark past. After hearing it, he looked angrier than I did. I comforted him, I've come this far. Judgment will come soon. He held me tightly, you've been through so much. I'm sorry. I apologize for what I said before. I never meant to hurt you, but... He sighed, I was too naive. He wasn't as bad as he made himself out to be. He had sensed something was off and had been investigating me, but in the end, he didn't reveal a single word to the Hayes family. The worst thing he did was to threaten me in front of me. Now that you know all this, is it too late? He looked at me cautiously, his eyes sparkling like the stars, just like 6 years ago. I shook my head with a smile. This expression didn't seem like him at all. Then he stared at me motionless, his gaze deep and unwavering. Emotions suppressed for so long surged forth like a tidal wave, overwhelming me almost to the point of collapse. We drew closer and closer. It was a kiss long overdue, precious and reverent. Just then, there was a knock on the office door. "Are you done talking? If you're not done yet, the Hayes family will be here to claim you." Derek frowned and let go of me. After I had composed myself, he said, "Come in." Dean looked at the messy break room, remained silent for a moment, then chuckled softly, "You two sure know how to pick a place." My face turned bright red. "I'll take my leave." "Wait." Derek leaned closer to me, his eyelashes trembling slightly, and his fingertips brushed against the corner of my lips. "Your lipstick is smudged." Dean's teasing gaze fell on us. I cleared my throat and fled the scene. Back at the Hayes family, I had to put on a solemn expression. He Xiao looked angry, probably having hit a snag somewhere. "Ethan, my parents have some connections in Australia. I'll go check if they're willing to help." His expression softened slightly. "Oh, right. Go ahead and see them." A commanding tone. But I wasn't angry. After all, he didn't have much time left either. After saying goodbye to the Hayes family, I boarded the plane the next day. At first, I called He Xiao every day to report the situation. He would also vent to me about the obstacles he had encountered that day. "Dean, that bastard, he actually wants to reclaim his shares in the hospital." He cursed angrily, refusing to let go of those shares. I gently reassured him, "It's okay, if he doesn't want them, we'll find another way." There was no other way. The Hayes family had done many unscrupulous things in the past, and everyone was well aware of it. Even the Derek family, who had always been on good terms with the Hayes family, stood by idly, and others naturally wouldn't get involved in this mess. Later, I called him every 3 days, and then every 5 days. I enjoyed the urgency and helplessness in his voice. "Ethan, we'll get through this. Don't worry." But the deadline for repayment was getting closer. How could he not be anxious? "How's it going over there?" "I'm visiting my father's old friend. He said he can lend me $4 million. What can you do with such a small amount?" I patiently reassured him, "We'll raise the money slowly. We'll manage eventually." "Slowly? You want me to wait? If we can't pay by then, I'll go to jail. If all else fails, we'll sell our shares in the hospital to the Derek family." "Wu Yingying, are you out of your mind?" I scoffed and hung up the phone. Then, I threw the SIM card into the sea. I came to Australia for a vacation. Occasionally, I would call He Xiao just to tease him. This was a rare period of leisure. The sea breeze was salty and the sun was bright. When He Xiao was at his wit's end, he sold the hospital shares. After paying off the debt, when he thought he was finally free, the pharmaceutical company held a shareholders' meeting. I returned to the country. Under everyone's gaze, I pushed open the meeting room door, took off my sunglasses, and greeted the Hayes family. "Long time no see." He Xiao was so angry he almost slammed the table. "Where have you been?" "On vacation." The sun in Australia was too strong, it even tanned me. I extended my arm toward him. "Look." Mr. Hayes looked much older, Yingying. It seemed they hadn't realized the severity of the situation yet. They still thought I was just angry at He Xiao. I glanced at Mr. Hayes and nodded slightly to Dean. "Everyone's here. Let's begin." Dean and He Xiao were on edge. Due to He Xiao's mistake, the tax evasion was discovered, and the stock price plummeted repeatedly. These matters had already infringed upon the shareholders' interests. They naturally harbored resentment toward He Xiao. Add to that Dean's enticements, and sure enough, the shareholders all switched sides. "Even if you all support him, what can you do?" "I have." He Xiao fell silent, thinking of something. Dean smiled elegantly, holding the share transfer agreement. "What if we add this?" Mr. Hayes looked at me in disbelief. He Xiao slammed the table and pointed at me, shouting, "Wu Yingying. Are you out of your mind?" In their eyes, I was meek and weak, the most obedient wife and daughter-in-law. But at that moment, I tore off the sheep's clothing and revealed my true self. Surprised? There's more surprises to come. He Xiao's eyes bulged with rage. He grabbed something and threw it at me. "You treacherous bitch." I didn't dodge. I let the phone hit my forehead. Everyone saw Mr. He's domestic violence. I smiled calmly at He Xiao. "I'll submit the evidence to the court. Let's get a divorce." He Xiao's forehead veins bulged, and he charged forward, but before he could even touch my sleeve, Dean knocked him to the ground with a single punch. What kind of man hits a woman? The scene descended into chaos as security guards rushed over to separate the two. Looking at He Zhao's bruised and swollen face, I couldn't help but laugh. As I passed by him, I whispered softly, "You idiot." Derek was waiting for me downstairs. Seeing the wound on my head, he wanted to go upstairs and fight He Zhao. I stopped him, but he turned to Dean and started yelling, "Brother, what the hell are you doing? Lan went up there to help you, not to get beaten up. You're supposed to have studied martial arts. You can't even beat He Zhao. What kind of man are you?" His words grew increasingly harsh. I snatched his phone and hung up. Lan, we can't go back to the Hayes family. I've found a place to stay. You need to be careful during this time. He Zhao is just as cunning as his father. Why don't I move in with you for now? It'll be safer for you. I raised an eyebrow. I haven't divorced yet. I don't mind. No way. He didn't press the issue further. That evening, when I went out to take out the trash, I bumped into him. Surprise. He had just finished showering, with only a towel wrapped around his lower body, revealing his perfectly defined 8-pack abs. His bangs were damp and stuck to his forehead, and even his pupils seemed to be shrouded in a mist. He did it on purpose. Who would open the front door after taking a shower? I gave him a once-over. You need to work on that. He wasn't happy with my reaction, rolled his eyes, and turned back inside. He moved across the street from my house, using the excuse of protecting me, but in reality, he was just there to eat and hang out. Luckily, I was in a good mood and didn't bother with him. Before the Hayes family could recover from their ordeal, they were taken away by the police again. Why? Because they had done many inhumane things to cover up the fact that the drugs were faulty. For example, they threatened the families of the patients, and they killed the families of the patients. On the day of the trial, an important witness arrived. It was Sophia, who had disappeared after He Zhao was taken away by the tax bureau. He Zhao, your self-deception ends here. Mrs. Hayes suddenly stood up from the gallery. You're crazy. He's the father of your child. Sophia stared at He Zhao, speaking slowly. No, he's my enemy. Do you remember me? My father was beaten to death by you. You knew there was something wrong, but you did nothing. You never even considered making amends. After my mother died, the patients' families gathered together, and we finally realized the severity of the situation. When you couldn't bribe my father, you threatened him. In the end, you killed him. Am I right, He Zhao? Yes, she was Mia. The Hayes family was wealthy and powerful, while she was just a high school student at the time. She couldn't do anything. She could only watch helplessly as He Zhao framed a thug for the crime, while he himself continued to live a carefree life. So she hid among the crowd, underwent plastic surgery, changed her name, and approached He Zhao under a new identity. She's different from me. She used her emotions as a weapon to hurt He Zhao even more deeply. All these years, we, the families of the victims, have lived in guilt and fear. Finally, you've fallen. We dare to stand up and tell the world what you've done. He Zhao trembled violently, his eyes red. He dared not look at her. He Zhao is just like his father, a lovesick fool. I'm sorry, he said to Sophia. She replied, just accept your punishment, you dog. That was so cool. I gave her a thumbs up. After the trial, the two of us went out for a meal. I raised my glass first, to you. She smiled at me, to you too. We've known each other for a long time. There was no evidence left regarding my father's case. To bring He Zhao to justice, we needed to find other evidence. His arrogant and domineering personality wasn't something that developed overnight. It wouldn't disappear overnight either. Sure enough, by investigating the victims of the drug incident, I discovered a clue. Mia disappeared. The Hayes family was busy with their affairs, with 30 households depending on them. How could they possibly be on guard against a little high school girl? It took me 5 years to find Mia. At that time, she had changed her name to Sophia and was one of He Zhao's many mistresses. But she was pregnant and didn't want He Zhao to know. So I took her to Australia. In countless dark nights, we huddled together, plotting how to take down the Hayes family father and son. Among the evidence I submitted, the most crucial bill was the one she sent to me. He Zhao trusted her far more than he trusted me. From the very beginning, this was a sweet trap set specifically for them. Sophia would handle He Xiao, and I would handle Mr. Hayes. We succeeded. After the Hayes family father and son were imprisoned, Sophia and I took Sammy to visit them. Only He Xiao appeared in the visiting room. He had lost a lot of weight and looked like he hadn't been doing well. I looked at him with a mocking expression, as if he were a pile of trash. Sammy, did you come to see your father? Sammy took a step back. He was 5 years old and remembered his mother telling him that the man in front of him was not a good person. Sammy, I'm your father. Come closer so your father can see you. Sammy didn't move. His pleading gaze turned to Sophia. Sophia was also looking at a pile of trash. It was I who spoke first. He Xiao, I've come to give you a surprise. This is Sammy's last time coming to see you, because you're not his father. His anger flared up instantly. Sammy was his Achilles heel. What nonsense are you talking about? Look closely, what is this? I threw the paternity test results at him. It clearly stated that the two of them had no father-son relationship whatsoever. The first one you saw was forged, this one is the real one. Why did Sophia leave her hometown? Because the child she was carrying wasn't He Xiao's at all. I told you this was a big plan. I deliberately brought the child to the charity dinner to make him appear in front of everyone. Mr. Hayes cares about his reputation, doesn't he? He Xiao loves this child, doesn't he? Well, I'll tell them the truth, this child is fake. Not only that, but I told everyone that the Hayes family was foolish enough to treat a child with no blood relation as their own treasure. He Xiao stood there speechless for a moment. Sophia, it's not like that. Tell me, it's not like that. He was like a wild beast trapped in a trap, howling and groaning in pain. So he could be hurt after all. Wu Yingying. I've never wronged you. Sophia spoke her first words since arriving, you don't even know the crimes you've committed. Why didn't you just die sooner? People like you are a waste of air. You don't deserve to be human. Go to hell. I laughed, that's right. Don't you think about it? How could someone like you deserve to have a child? He Xiao, there's still so much time left before your execution. You'll remember. He Xiao was trembling with anger, punching the glass repeatedly. But I wasn't the helpless child I used to be. Please sign the divorce agreement as soon as possible. Otherwise, I can't guarantee your mother's safety. He was taken away by the prison guards. A sense of satisfaction filled my chest, and I almost cried with joy. Dad, you saw that, didn't you? I did it. Godmother, don't cry. Sammy had climbed onto the chair at some point and was wiping away my tears with his tiny hands. Godmother, don't be sad. Sammy will protect you from now on. I kissed him on the cheek. Godmother isn't sad. When you grow up, you'll understand that people cry when they're happiest. He nodded, seeming to understand, then held out his hand to me. Sammy is hungry. I want to go eat. He jumped down from the chair. Sophia and I exchanged smiles, holding Sammy's hands on either side, and ran toward our future.